As I mentioned to those who joined the room earlier, Guilherme won't be with us today. I think he's working in France, and he asked me to, together with a chance to coordinate the study today. And as usual, let's start with an opening prayer. Let's thank our beloved Father God, our beloved Master Jesus, for the opportunity to get together once again, and in his name, study and improve ourselves by not just learning more and keeping in our minds the teachings that we receive, but slowly transforming them into love that change us from darkness to light, and also transform ourselves into more productive workers in the fields of the Lord. So, enveloped by the love and assistance of the benefactors and our guardian angels, so that we may be inspired throughout the study, may we ask them to be with us. With their permission, we start our study today. So be it.
So be it.
Okay, I'll share my screen. Okay. Now, last time we are studying chapter 6, and we stopped halfway through item 105. So I think it's better, for the sake of understanding the whole idea in this item, to start from the beginning. 105. By its very nature, in its normal state, the perispirit is invisible. The same may be said of countless fluids that we know to exist, but which we have never seen. But like certain fluids, it can undergo modifications that render it visible, whether by a sort of condensation or by a change in its molecular arrangement. This is when it can appear to us in a vaporous form. So we are talking about apparitions and the theory that has been presented to explain what has been seen in terms of apparitions. So there is a process that the perispirit undergoes, and the fluids as well, that render themselves visible. Condensation, we must not take this word literally. We only use it due to the lack of another and as a simple instrument of comparison. Can be such that the perispirit acquires the properties of a solid and tangible body, but it can instantaneously return to its ethereal and invisible state. Interesting that we see that this transformation of the perispirit, apparently it has its gradation. It can be from a vaporous form, as it's been mentioned before, to the point that it becomes tangible, and it can all of a sudden disappear. So we see that it is a property that the perispirit has that undergoes from being invisible to being tangible. I just want to remind you all that it is a study, so interrupt, ask questions whenever you feel like. Okay? So let's move on. We can understand this process by comparing it to steam, which can go from invisibility to a mist, then to a liquid, and finally to a solid, and vice versa. I like very much these. I think the states of water, in form of vapor, liquid, and solid, ice, for instance. It's interesting because it gives us an idea of the transformation that matter undergoes, and then can turn from something invisible, completely invisible, to something very solid and palpable. So this has been used, for us to understand the process that the perispirit can undergo, but not to explain it, because, as they say, the perispirit is not made out of the same solid matter that we have in the physical world, but it undergoes similar processes. These diverse states of the perispirit, however, are due to the will of the spirit itself, and not to physical or outside causes, as is the case with our gases. I think Charles has raised his hand. Yeah.
Yes, Munir.
Okay.
So it's interesting because we know that in which conditions steam is turning into water or is turning into ice. It's ambient condition, pressure, atmospheric pressure, whatever. Now he's explaining this. It is the case with our gases, so we know in which condition we have steam and we have water or we have ice. Now, with regards to matter itself, or even to semi-matter, now the degree of complexity has increased a little bit more, because in the meantime we had quantum physics. And we know, for instance, he's saying we cannot see the fluids. At that time of Kardec, electricity was considered as a fluid. They didn't know that it is the electrons which are traveling into a conductor or whatsoever. So, and now we know that the electron is either a particle or a wave. So the degree of complexity is much higher. And but nevertheless, the principle that the perispirit can turn visible or not, or invisible, depending on the will, as you just read, is very interesting. And for me, it would be, as Gabriel Delanne said, fundamental hypothesis to be that would win to be considered by the today's scientists, in order to try to go beyond this matter as we know it, and try to enter a little bit, come a little bit closer to this semi-matter, as is the matter of the perispirit. And I think this phenomenon of apparition is really key in this way, because when it is seeable, it means there are some photons emitted or reflected or whatever. So, but how, by what, this would be the key to investigate such phenomenon in order to progress a little bit more towards these different type of matters.
Yeah, you reminded me of there was a time that calculators, they had a display, and it was all sort of gray, and then all of a sudden the number would appear. They weren't, tiny light bulbs. They were was just a flat display, and all of a sudden you would see a number in black. And that amazed me so much, because there was nothing there but just, this plate there would turn black or light gray, depending on the electricity, the current that went there. It amazed me because something invisible all of a sudden turns visible. And I think, yes, well, the initial LCD calculators.
Liquid crystal.
Yes, liquid crystal, yeah. And it amazed me because just, a tiny electric current would render it completely visible or invisible. And it's interesting that, these processes, they happen in nature. And when it comes to the perispirit, as Chance pointed out very well, it depends on something even more complex than just the material world, because in the material world, there are laws, and matter obeys those laws. But in the spiritual world, the will of the spirit, this force, as it were, is an element that is very important, as it's been mentioned here. And there's one aspect also. Guilherme usually insists that he doesn't believe that the spirit says, oh, I want to show myself like this or like that, and instantly the spirit will show. And I see my perception of that is that will is what actually promotes this transformation. But then there is willpower. Do we have the power to use our will to promote the transformation that we want all the time? And I think that has to be developed by the spirit, the capability of making all these transformations. And, it's not just, the spirit says, oh, I want to look like someone, this person or that person, and immediately transforms itself. Or, it returns to the spirit world with a deformity in the body and says, oh, go away, deformity. And then, the body is fully recovered. Some can do that, some cannot. Why? And I think it's not just will, but it's the power that you put in this will in order to be able to accomplish in a simplified way, because there's probably more than just that. But we know that willpower is very important. And it's also interesting that it says here, the combining of the fluids. It's interesting that, some other elements are added to this process as well. So consequently, it's not enough for the spirit to want to appear for a person. I think we stop there, yeah? No, stop the paragraph before. These diverse stages of the perispirit, however, are due to the will of the spirit itself and not to physical or outside causes, as it is the case with our gases. A spirit can appear to us when it places its perispirit in the states necessary to become visible. But a simple desire is not enough to produce the effect, because the modification of the perispirit can only occur when it combines its own fluids with the specific fluid of a medium. This combining is not always possible, which explains why it is uncommon for spirits to make themselves visible. So there's something else to be added there, the fluids, and also the affinity. So we see, there is the will of the spirit, there are external fluids, and also this affinity with the medium.
Alice, you have hands up.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah, if I might say, going back to like the construction of things, photons, etc. A lot also regarding the willpower and free will depends on the consciousness of particular spirits and the level that they're at. And consciousness is also formed, it's combined with gravity and formed by neutrinos, and possibly photons, but definitely neutrinos. And that combines as well, I should think, in the level of that consciousness unit, in what it can achieve, maybe.
Yes, I mean, we shouldn't forget that we have, when we describe the world, and Chance pointed it very well, is we try to create elements to explain what we see, and we try to see the phenomena in nature and see if what we have used as elements to describe and I'm taking, for instance, before the atom used to be described in a certain way, and now we have a different perception of what the atom is. And then in the end, we have particles that, especially the tiny ones, most of them we have never seen. Sometimes the way we detect them is not directly. And then we build a theory on top of what we know and what we believe exists, the way we believe they exist. But in fact, it's just a way, according to what we can perceive from nature, through our eyes, through our instruments nowadays. Without instruments, we wouldn't be able to have any of the modern physics in particle physics. And then we need to go a step further, predicting certain things, and then we have to investigate again through our instruments. And then we start to build that knowledge to explain things. Many aspects in physics, many theories in physics, and even some particles, they have a certain behavior that we can use and understand to explain certain phenomena. But to go beyond that, to try to explain the spiritual world in terms of those, I think it's a bit more complicated. Why is that? Because we have very little, although we have some, we have very little information of how wide is the action of these particles. You were talking about neutrinos. Recently, they made this experiment, and they realized that apparently neutrinos can travel faster than the speed of light. But full stop, apparently. So they were checking and rechecking this experiment to see if this property is true. Then you will start to think, what is the effect of that? But sometimes we want to build a theory, full theory on top of that. And that's why sometimes we have to, be cautious in terms of using physics, which nowadays is being done, many times, to use what we know in physics and so on to explain phenomena that are from the spiritual realm and even from the realm of thoughts. We can even think in terms of that. Yes, we can perhaps put a question mark on that. Yes, but it's difficult actually to enter into a full explanation of what is going on in the spiritual world, just based on what science is still crawling, I would say. Because what we know is just one tiny step further in physics. And then to take that to explain something that is completely, until now, completely outside the realm of particles and physics as such. For instance, dark matter and dark energy. People are using dark matter and dark energy to explain or try to explain everything that it's not explained until now. And especially in terms of spiritual science, if I can call that. So we should be a bit cautious to do that. Just as cautious as Kardec has been when he said, well, I'll give you the example of water in its 3 states. But the transformation of the perispirit is not the transformation of water. So I'm very cautious actually to use physics that I know it's still developing, it's still very limited in the understanding of the physical world, to jump into the spiritual world. I don't know if I made myself clear. But we can hardly experience certain phenomena in the physical realm with the physics that we have today, let alone explain what is of a different dimension or realm, or I would be cautious with that. Elsa Lee? I think Elsa Lee raised her hand.
I will exactly. First, pardon, because my English is not good, but very spirit. I think I had the long time, but I had an experience when I had said I see sometimes when spirits, but to touch spirit, and he touched me, see, and I touch it, and I feel exactly like temperature, also the same. Some we have here 36, 37, and I was almost to start to sleep, and I feel, somebody here, and he touched me, but the feeling I had sometimes, if God give me this time, this help, I can hear, and I can hear what this spirit is thinking. He doesn't have nothing on me. It's not with me. He talked to me because he would like some kind of help. And I feel it. I have a little tree in the oceans. He would like, he needs help. He needs help, and he touched me, and I try take out his fingers, but it was he was enormous. He was enormous. He was enormous, and I try, and I take one, another thing, and exactly the same time I could do. He take again, they come again, and I bet a bit to Jesus, and I start to pray to Jesus, and I pray to me and to him too, because I knew he is not anything with me, because I used me. We know that always we have some kinds of light. So they can then attract us to.
If the spirit appeared to you, that's because it has something to do with you. The message perhaps may not be directed to you, but it has to do something with you, in one way or another. And we also know that they can get to a degree of materialization that you not only feel them, but you also feel temperature, everything, You swear it's a physical body. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think there's something, and some consider another life. And it was my time to help him. And he was, because I prayed, and he slept. And he and the spirits, the good guides, they talk him, because he wants, and this was way he find to have a help. And yes, and as here. Yes, I scribbled. He was, yes, he find it and help he needs.
Good. Yes,
So,
if they come to us, that's because they either want to give us a piece of advice, or they need some help. And it's always good to pray for them, whatever the motive for them to come and appear to us. Okay.
So another one, it was another, yes, I was in south of Sweden, and to an event, and there I lived in the house in a friend, and in the evening, in the night, she was have a cat, and cat was with me. It's a wonderful cat, and they come. Suddenly, I wake up and I say, "Oh, Jesus, I am not alone." And I saw in the hair one woman. She talk so much, but I couldn't understand, because she was very, very worried about something. And I say, please, please calm down, because you will be happy. You will exactly sometime shut up. And the face was calm. Another day we had the
Okay,
event. I talked about anything to do than my horses, and but in the night when they came back with our event, I talked to her and described it, the face, and she recognized it. She said, because she have one son here and she would like to know about him.
yeah.
And so it was so.
It
And I
happens,
said, Mama,
yeah.
you don't,
This-
because
Yeah, these are cases. Yeah.
Huh?
These are cases, yes. I mean, those who have this faculty, they, they will see spirits. And the important thing is, if we see them, we may not know exactly why they're there, but it's always to pray for them and to also, ask for assistance from them. Okay.
Exactly.
Any more questions?
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, it was that.
Okay. Let's move on then. Consequently, it is not enough
Thank you very
for the spirit. Oh, thank you, Asali. Consequently, it's not enough for the spirit to want to appear or for a person to want to see it. The combining of the fluids of both is required, which means that there must be a kind of affinity between them, and also that the emission of the medium's fluid must be quite abundant in order to bring about the perispirit's transformation. There are probably other conditions that we do not yet know about. Finally, the spirit must have received permission to appear to a person, which is not always granted, and if so, only in certain circumstances, for reasons that we are not yet able to ascertain. So we see that there are many elements involved in these apparitions. We see that the spirit has to combine with the fluid of the medium. The medium has to provide the necessary amount of fluid for the spirit to use for these, and also there's the permission for the spirit to show him or herself to us. So that's why, we don't see spirits all the time everywhere, although we know they are there. It's not an easy process because it requires, several conditions, to be met in order for the spirit to render itself visible to us. Okay.
Luis, you still have your hands up, but there's a queue of hands.
Okay. All right. So Cleo?
Just a quick question that I have. When you say that the mediums, they use the medium's fluid as well, I just want to know if the medium is aware that the fluid is using for the
Not
operation.
necessarily, no. We know cases that the medium is not aware that the fluid is being used. The phenomenon of apparition is taking place in the vicinity, not necessarily where the medium is. The medium may not even be aware of the fact. I'm not saying by that
Thank you.
the medium may not perceive that something has happened. For instance, the medium may feel tired after a while or something, but to know exactly that the fluid is using by that spirit to to promote a certain type of apparition, I think not necessarily. Charles?
Yes, so the question here again is about, does the apparition happen through the vision, through the eyes, physical eyes, or not? In the first case, it's through the physical eyes. Theoretically, if there is another person aside the medium, he will be able to see the apparition as well. And it will be more a materialization than an apparition, okay? So if the medium does not perceive, I don't use the verb seeing anymore. If the medium is perceiving the apparition not through the eyes, but through its perispirit, then it's another question. So his spirit, the medium who can see the spirits, takes a certain liberty towards the physical body and is able to perceive through the spiritual senses, let's say so. And even in this case, they cannot perceive all the spirits. So in order to perceive a spirit, they need to give on top of this some of their fluid or ectoplasm or whatever that the other spirit is using to make a kind of semi-materialization or something like that, enabling the medium to perceive the spirit. I say perceive and not see. So this is how it may happen as well, but yet to be better conceptualized.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. Sometimes, yeah, it's a bit confusing because, you know, apparition in general is the one that you can see with the closed eyes. Although sometimes the term is used in a broader sense. But if you
So
close
with
your
closed
eyes,
you do not see,
yeah,
you perceive.
you perceive, exactly. We see, we say see because we interpret as in an image,
Our
but
brain
we
interprets
perceive.
it as an image.
Yeah, we perceive it. But it's interesting, but even as Charles mentioned, even in these cases, it is necessary to have this affinity and the spirit has to render itself visible. Because sometimes we have many spirits in the room, but the medium is seeing one or two only. Sometimes the spirit is there and there is, you know, a team helping that spirit in a certain situation, but the medium, what the medium sees is not exactly what is happening in the room. He's not seeing all the spirits that are there. How is it possible? So we know that apparition exists and it has to meet certain conditions for it to take place. And then we have the extreme case where it's materialization, it's physical. What we see is the reflect of light on a physical body, as it were, that has been created, materialized for people to see. And then, as Charles mentioned, not just the medium sees, other people can see, even if they are not mediums. It's physical, it's there, it's palpable, as Elsa Lee mentioned, palpable. You can feel sometimes even the warmth of the body, as if it was in the body of a living person. So it has these gradations. And they say, you know, if you're having, if you have an apparition in front of you, a way to check is close your eyes. If you're still perceiving that spirit, seeing in inverted commas, with your eyes closed, with your ears shut, then, you know, it is an apparition. So, Ebony?
Yes, thank you. A quick question. There are some cases where an apparition happens and the medium can perceive it, but the spirit is very surprised that the medium can see or perceive its presence. In some cases, it may even ask, oh my God, can you see me? When we consider all these conditions that are necessary for the apparitions to happen, can we say in a case like that, that there must be another spirit, perhaps an elevated spirit, a mentor or somebody else present that is there to help bring about those conditions? You know, for example, we know that the will of the spirit is necessary. It's one of the conditions needed. So if the spirit is asking, oh my God, how can you see me? What is the possible explanation in a situation like that that brings about that apparition?
Yeah, thanks. Very good question. we should remember there are very elements involved in that, including permission to do that. But in this case, when you see, especially if you're in the rescue work, working with mediumship to help the spirits, and they are surprised that you can see them, it is in a very controlled situation that benefactors can act and promote that. But I know many mediums who can see in the streets without, any, how would I say, effort for the medium to see, to engage into a mediumistic communication or so. So in this case, these are special people, and it's like having, a narrowband internet and a broadband internet. In a broadband internet, you can communicate and send and receive a lot of things at the same time. Whereas in a narrowband, almost non-existent band, it's just very tiny, very little. So despite the fact that they say, well, there are several elements involved, we don't know exactly when naturally these elements are met and the medium can see or cannot see. And of course, what we see, what the medium sees, perhaps is just a tiny fraction of what is there. It's really there. And because there is a purpose in everything, even going in the street and seeing medium, I knew a medium, she wouldn't drive because sometimes she couldn't tell if it was a living person in a physical body, an incarnate person, or if it was a spirit crossing the street. So in order to prevent any sort of a accident caused by that, she decided to give up driving, and because she would see, perhaps if she concentrated, if she tried to perceive more of that that phenomenon, but perhaps she would notice some difference or so. But in this case, it was natural. Divaldo Franco also, when he goes to places that have been this scenario of a long history, he sees the spirits from centuries ago. They are still there, and once he tells that sometimes he sees them, but he doesn't look directly at their direction, because if they see that he can see them, they may approach and try to establish a communication. And it's not the case if you are outside or visiting a museum or an ancient house or something like that. So you shouldn't actually establish the link where you can see. So I would say this, what we have here is a general explanation of the elements involved, but when they occur, under which conditions they are present or not, we know very, very little. Why it happens sometimes. But we know that in a controlled environment, which is the one in the mediumistic work, when you have rescue work, when we receive suffering spirits to help through mediumship, this is a controlled environment. And benefactors may very well promote this phenomenon there for this purpose.
But Munir, I think we can answer, yes, there are probably mentors involved in the phenomenon, the spiritual mentor also, or the guardian angel of the medium and so on. Probably there are other spirits involved when such phenomenon happens.
Yes, I think so, yes. We don't know, we don't see all of them there, even when we see spirits. We don't know how many are there and what exactly, is there.
And the second part of the answer is, when you are a spirit and you are used not to be seen, if at a given point you remark that you are seen, of course the spirit is surprised to be seen because he was used not to be seen. It's a natural reaction.
Okay, Elsa-Lee, you raised your hand.
I try to talk a short time. Then the spirits I saw, and I described as was a little bit green color and a light green color, and needs help, and he find help. As I know, I saw in my mind all the time, my mind. And when I touch him, I can't explain, sorry, but I touch him, but I knew he was a little bit very, very strong and bigger, and so. But I saw him in my mind. And another in a Paulista Avenue, Alameda Santos, São Paulo, a long time ago. I didn't know that I would move to Sweden and so. And I saw a spirit, and this was in the morning. I came to work. I worked in the Paulista Paulista Avenue, and he was. I think it was interesting because he had clothes from I think 8th, 9th century, and he touched out his hat. It was like a shaping hat, and he said, "Good morning, Miss. Very good morning. I wish Miss have a best day today, best morning today, best of today," and a long time ago. And they think, "Oh, it was nice." I said, "Thank you." Saiu. It was in Portuguese. He said in Portuguese. And it was automatic. I saw about in the back of May. I said, "Oi, me," and it's nothing. Anybody was there. I said, "Dude, I saw a spirit." And I wasn't a spirit that time. I wasn't a spirit. No, I didn't. It was interesting because I wasn't a spiritist. And this had then long time then here in Sweden. I saw a photography, and my friend, I said, I saw this spiritist. She said, Soli. So I think it was André Luiz, maybe it was another one. Or she said, "I think this photo is Oswaldo Cruz." So I saw Oswaldo Cruz, and this first signal, we studied, moved to Sweden and studied medicine. So it was the first signal I felt. It's very nice. I was very, very great about it. It was nice.
Good. I can imagine, first a surprise, and then, when they leave, a very nice impression. Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Cecily.
Thank you.
So
I have another live. Go now because I have another live.
Okay.
My heart with with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, my dear.
God bless.
Thank you.
So 106. Another property of the perispirit is the penetrability inherent to its ethereal nature. No type of matter can obstruct it. It can pass through anything as easily as light passes through transparent objects. Hence, there are no means of preventing spirits from entering a place. This is very, very interesting. Another property, the penetrability. So it's talking about the ethereal nature of the perispirit. So no type of matter can obstruct it. Because there's dense matter, and the property of the perispirit is different because it's made out of ethereal matter. We can call it matter. And it's interesting to see that, matter such cannot prevent the spirit from, entering any place. But having said that, we know cases of spirits who, through a conditioning of their minds, they can do that. They may find themselves locked in a room or not being able to enter a certain place because, in this case, their understanding of the situation is limited. We know cases in books and even people who can do the what they call astral traveling, go into places and seeing that certain spirits, they are afraid because they don't know how to get out of a certain place. And I know some people, they do this work, they rescue people, spirits, who find themselves in situations like that, blocked by matter. So it's interesting to see that this is a property of the perispirit, but sometimes, as not being aware of the possibilities of the perispirit, we create barriers for ourselves. And I think more or less like the fact that we can render ourselves visible, but sometimes we don't know exactly how to do it. I don't know if Charles wants to add anything to that.
Yes, so again, it's a very interesting subject because this means that the semi-matter can go through the matter as we know it perfectly, with quantum, solid physics, and so on. So it's one of the fundamental hypotheses. We have seen also when in the apportation chapter that the spirit who is bringing some object cannot go through the wall with this object he is bringing. He can render it invisible. He can travel with it, transport it over long distance, but he cannot enter through the wall. He must enter through the door, basically. This is what you have seen 3 or 4 weeks ago. And in the spiritual world, you are fully right. Nosora, for instance, there is a kind of wall around it, and the spirits which are outside cannot pass through this wall. So this means that in the spiritual world, the spirits are capable of doing some barriers that, better than a physical wall, can block the spirits who are not allowed to cross it.
Yeah. So many things that we don't fully understand, but we know these cases and very good examples from the André Louis collection. And we have cases of spirits being even in jail, in the spiritual world. They are locked in a place and they can't leave that place.
Pablo has his hand risen.
Yeah, just thinking about how spirits have a relation with the matter. So thinking about like, oh, they can cross walls or doors, or there is no place that could hold them if they want to. I'm thinking about what we see described in books such as ones from André Louis. When you see a spirit like sitting on a bench or a sofa or a chair, so that is a matter as well. So how would that be possible if the spirit crosses the matter? So is it something that he has to, I don't know, change in his constitution to be able to sit on a chair, for instance?
But Pablo, the chair in the spiritual world is also a spiritual nature.
No, but
So
when the spirits are in among us, and you see
in the
when people
place.
say, when people say, oh, it was sitting on a chair.
He's basically levitating, so he can appear wherever he wants. And there are also some, for apparitions, for instance, saying that the apparition has, for instance, disappeared through the floor or things like that. So they stay above the floor as long as they want. And when they don't want anymore, they go through the floor. But the ectoplasm cannot go through the floor. It stays in the room.
Okay.
Yeah, because we shouldn't forget that the mind is the active element in the spiritual world more than in the physical world. In the physical world, we were restrained, but in the spiritual world. So if you see something and you want to sit down there, you are basically you don't need a physical chair to sustain you. You just go and sit down because that is real for you. So if a spirit sees the couch and wants to sit there next to someone, I know what you mean, the spirit would go through. I think it's similar to the conditioning that some spirits have, that they see a wall and they said, I can't go through. I have to open the door and go through it, but they are limited and the others are not, they, for them, that is a reality. It is as if it was real for them in the spirit world as well.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Daniel?
No, I was
I
just
guess so.
want to add a point, if it makes sense to make the question is about the mind is as a human being incarnated. Eventually, I see a table in a different way than the other person sees a table, and for some reason, some people would not like make cakes on the table, or the other one will make a surgery. I will see the table in a way, and the other person will see the table in another way, just already thinking something different. But in the day by day, even incarnated, we have some limitations. We don't do some stuff that we could do, and we even use research from other people to have help to overcome these limitations, like therapy and that kind of stuff. There is a relation between these concepts of reality and concepts of what I can do that is similar between being incarnated and being disincarnated as well, like the sample that you just trying to make it relate.
Yes, it's the same spirit in finding itself in different conditions. I was just going to give an example. People who do things in the same way, or sometimes, you always sit at the same chair to have your breakfast, and one day you decide to change, or you go to the classroom, you always sit in the same place, and one day you decide to break that. Oh, there's no purpose in doing that. Why can't? So in your mind, you are limited to that. And there aren't physical limitations. The limitations are imposed by your mind. So the way you see, the way you perceive, the way you behave in that environment, physically speaking, is limited. And then one day, one thing you say, wow, I never thought of doing it this way, or I never thought of changing the table from here to there. And so we create this conditioning, I would call, for ourselves in the physical world, let alone in the spiritual world as well. We may create a lot of them for us. And if you're used to sort of having a table for a certain purpose, whenever you see a table, you attach that to the purpose that you give for that table. Some people may see sort of teapots and cakes and so on, because they like to sit around with friends, and it's part of their routine of their lives. But some people may see that as a way of writing, so you sit there to write books, write poems, write whatever. So where is that written or labeled that table is for this purpose or that purpose? We create that condition. Don't know if I answered your question.
Thank you. Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, good. Thanks. So they can.
We need 106, I think. 106.
Yes, yeah, okay. Yeah, I was just checking if I had started it or
Oh,
not.
no,
but
no,
anyway.
sorry.
that's-
107. Sorry.
7, okay.
Yeah.
I think I hadn't finished it. Because it says here, hence there are no means of preventing spirits from entering a place that can visit prisoners in their cells as easily as they can visit someone in the middle of an open field. So we see that there's no barrier in general, in principle. There's no barriers for the perispirits in the material world. Apparitions during the waking state are not rare, nor do they comprise a novelty. They have occurred throughout history, which offers us a large number of such cases. However, without having to resort to the past, they have frequently been encountered in our own times. Many people have seen them and have at first taken them for what convention has called hallucinations. They are especially common in cases where persons have died somewhere far away and have come to visit relatives and friends. They often do not have a clear objective, but we can state that spirits who appear in this way are generally drawn to do so out of sympathy. If we would examine our memories, we would find that there are few people who have not heard of incidents of this kind, and their authenticity can no longer be held in doubt. We'll stop here. Yes, this is true. I know many people who, saw someone, a relative, a person that was very close to them, and then later they got the news that that person had died, or that person was in hospital, or and they saw, they were visited by the person, or they had all of a sudden this flash, saw the person in front of them, and then and as it's been said here, it has happened in the past and it happens nowadays, and is as it's been said here, is out of sympathy. There is an affinity, there's a connection, there is a link. And as I said to Elsa Lee earlier, if we see spirits, there's a purpose for that. We don't know exactly what the purpose is. We may not know, but if we are not, as I said before, in a rescue work, putting ourselves at the service of the benefactors to help brothers and sisters who need our mediumship to, to receive some assistance, then if it happens outside or in our house or wherever, there is a purpose for that. If it's not to call our attention to something, perhaps give us a message, alert us of something, or also, someone in need that requires a prayer, and saw this opportunity allowed by, of course, benefactors, spirits of a higher rank, to be able to be seen by us, so that they will get some help there through a prayer, or something like that. Okay, I'll stop sharing here. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Let's do just a quick prayer before we go. Let's thank the benefactors for the study, for the opportunity of getting together, of receiving these teachings. May they help us through our journey here on earth and our return to the spiritual world when the time comes. But may it help us also to be active workers whenever we are. So with our hearts full of joy and gratitude, we thank them for this opportunity, this invitation to receive their teaching through our regular study. So be it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
A very happy new year to all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Happy
much.
New
Same
Year.
to you.
Bye-bye.
Happy New Year.
See you all next
Bye-bye.
week.
See you. Happy New Year.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Happy
Thank
New
you.
Year.